Okay, so I want to start this video off seriously. I really do, but like, just quickly, I gotta get this out of the way first. Doesn't this guy right here kind of look like a balding version of that guy from Twilight? The vampire guy? He does, right? Yeah. Try and get that picture out of your mind now. You're welcome. Right, now with that off of my chest, Abyss recently released some information that I wasn't really made aware of. So let's take a few minutes and talk about that. Black Desert Online was released back in 2015. By today's standards, that means that the game is old, dated, almost obsolete in terms of graphics, gameplay, and even combat. And while admittedly, I don't really believe that's true, the game is still outstanding in every one of the aforementioned categories. The fact remains, however, that both Abyss and even gamers of this generation themselves are definitely of that opinion. Like, Black Desert Mobile just launched and it has already garnered over 20 million players, which is approximately 2/3 of the entire Black Desert player base. Yes, as of right now, as of I think it's February 2020, there are over 30 million total players playing within the Black Desert verse. Although January 2020 was actually the last time we were updated in terms of player numbers. So, you know, why wouldn't Abyss take this opportunity to capitalize on the franchise and create a pre-sequel spin-off, right? So when we last spoke about Crimson Desert, which was a few weeks after the announcement, we knew, like, what? The game was going to be a new MMORPG, that it was going to use brand new tech to develop the game, and it would feature a separate timeline, and I think that's pretty much it. Well, not only do we have a full trailer for the game, which I'm sure you've all watched and noticed certain, I don't know, I'm not gonna go ahead and say similarities to a certain popular TV series, but
similarities to a certain popular TV series.
And while the trailer itself was pretty cool, it didn't really reveal much. However, recently there's been new information, and even better yet, new screenshots released onto the internet, which is what you're all here for, right? Now, initially, Crimson Desert was being developed with the goal of telling the history of Black Desert, delving into the game's past. But over the course of the development process, Abyss, the team developing the game, realized that they wanted to do more. They wanted to explore more, they wanted to show more, and thus the story, thus the game itself, evolved into something that was much more original, something that was less connected to Black Desert and actually went on to feature different lands, a completely different narrative, and even different characters altogether. While again, the game was developed initially as a prequel, and therefore it shared a lot of the same environments, it seems as though Crimson Desert is recreating the vast majority of the landmass that we get to explore. According to Abyss specifically, there will be a few identifiable in-game homages, but they wanted to create kind of like an entirely new worldviews, religions, and characters unique to the world of Crimson Desert, which is a fantastic change and one for the better. Like, don't get me wrong, Black Desert, it has one of the most beautiful worlds I have ever seen. Its world is exceptionally stunning. However, the world itself, it already exists within Black Desert itself, and, you know, we don't really need Black Desert's world just recreated in a new engine. And Abyss apparently came to the same conclusion, and not a moment too soon, because not only will the world of Crimson Desert actually be exclusive, unique, pretty much only to Crimson Desert, but Abyss also wanted to go ahead and elaborate a little more in the narrative as well. Black Desert Online, it has a story, a narrative that drives the player ever forward, albeit one that 99.9% of the player base either don't know exists or actively avoids. This is, ironically enough, because it pretty much serves absolutely no purpose whatsoever. And I'll be the first to admit, as a huge fan of story, especially in games like Guild Wars 2 and Final Fantasy 14 and Star Wars The Old Republic, the story in Black Desert is just really poorly told. Crimson Desert and Abyss actually aim to change that by providing a much stronger narrative, offering players a much more prevalent questing system. See, according to Abyss, Crimson Desert is going to provide players an, and I quote here, immersive single-player campaign teeming with engaging quests based on the exploits of many mercenaries you'll find available for hire. This is interesting, perhaps the most interesting thing in the entire announcement, and definitely more interesting than pretty much anything else revealed thus far. See, they mentioned that it's going to be a single player campaign, not that the campaign is going to be doable solo, meaning that if, you know, like how they phrased it is to be believed, at least pertaining to this specific form of content, it is only going to be playable and only going to be completable solo, meaning that there will be no option for anything but solo play. And to me, that kind of defeats the purpose of an MMO, limiting who we can play with, or more so limiting how many people we can play with in a game designed to be played by a large amount of people together cooperatively. But at the same time, Pearl Abyss know by now that PvE content is crucial to the success of not only Black Desert and Black Desert Mobile, but also the growth and furthermore the success of Crimson Desert itself. They need something different to Black Desert Online, a game that is different, that has a different group of players interested in it, because if they don't, they are going to essentially be creating direct competition for a game that is already played by tens of millions of players. Now, whether solo play for this specific form of content will remain, or they will open it up for larger groups of people, is up for discussion, but they did make a note to state that there will be a substantial amount of content that is found in more traditional MMORPG format. Also worth mentioning are the NPCs, which Pearl Abyss claim have their own unique personal backgrounds and stories that are intertwined with not only the character you're playing, but also the band of mercenaries that follow you. These stories, the quests you take, the journey you go on, everything you do, every decision you make will have an effect on the game. Or again, at least so they claim. I feel like, you know, Pearl Abyss are maybe making a slightly grandiose statement, a mildly over-exaggerated claim, as most developers seem to want to do. I mean, you know, that makes sense. It creates hype for the game and gets people all excited, but at the same time, that also provides people with a, I don't know, like a false kind of skewed view of the game, and then they have these false expectations. Now, I don't doubt that you will have options that will change things like dialogue, or maybe result in different gear, or heck, even something a little deeper, but I wouldn't expect more than that. I would love to be proven wrong though. And finally, I believe that open world PvP was confirmed in something they mentioned. The biggest friend or foe, as in any MMORPG, will be the player right beside you. That kinda sounds like open world PvP, right? I mean, obviously it does. How else would the guy sitting or standing right beside you be your biggest foe? Crimson Desert could be something really truly epic. The funding the game is no doubt going to have is off the charts. The success of Black Desert Online, the success of Black Desert Mobile, they have made a fortune off of the IP thus far, and with the expansion onto almost every gaming platform, they're only continuing to grow larger. I'm excited to see where the game ultimately ends up going, but I also have a few concerns that will need to be answered, or at the very least elaborated on, before I get my hopes up too much. On the one hand, I love that Pearl Abyss have taken feedback and player opinion into consideration and have realized that while yes, Black Desert struck gold with their style of game, nobody wants to play two different versions of the same game. Black Desert is all about grinding. It takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of dedication. Splitting that time between two different games would be impossible. So it's refreshing to see that they understand this and have provided various other types of gameplay to occupy players, content that won't require mindless grinding. Now, my concern with this is that I'm not really sure what form this is really going to take, because, you know, if it's just like actual questing, I don't really think that's gonna fly. They haven't confirmed whether there are going to be like dungeons and raids, or maybe even things like fates or open world events like in other MMOs, but I'm honestly curious what their thoughts are on those specific kinds of content and those specific kinds of features. Then I'm concerned that they're going to be creating additional competition for themselves. Like, don't get me wrong, they're creating what, like Dokkaevi as well, and Dokkaevi is a monster collecting, kind of cutesy looking anime MMORPG that isn't going to impact the success or the growth of Black Desert or even Crimson Desert, and thus neither game really have anything to worry about when Dokkaevi ends up ultimately launching. But if the goal is to just create something like Black Desert, to make like a more updated version of Black Desert, then what happens to Black Desert when people ultimately just kind of like migrate over to it? Because you guys know that's going to happen. Crimson Desert is going to look a lot better, it's going to play better, it's going to be optimized better. And then finally comes the methods with which they choose to monetize the game and the business model. Buy-to-play works well, but Pearl Abyss offers much more than it should be offered in a buy-to-play game to players via the cash shop, and you can see this sentiment echoed throughout the community. I know it's going to be a South Korean MMO, I do, but I hope they listen to the community and don't fill the cash shop with items that ruin the game or give players with larger bank accounts an advantage. But that's pretty much it, all the information we've been made aware of up until this point. and pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. Crimson Desert doesn't have an official release date currently, nor is it confirmed whether or not the English version of the game is going to be launching like alongside the South Korean version when the South Korean version launches. But Pearl Abyss are nevertheless looking to release some form of beta during the year. When specifically is anyone's guess, but they have stated, like I mentioned, they want to release a beta this year. It'll probably be the end of this year, but I mean, you know what? Hey, as long as it comes this year, we'll have something to test out. But hey, that's just my opinion, my impressions of the game and its upcoming release. What do you guys think though? Let me know down in the comments below and let's talk about it. Anyway guys, that is it for me. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.
Someday soon, I'm gonna make it. Yeah, all hard work's gonna be worth it.